Welcome. In front of me I have the brand new iPhone 13, and today I'll go over unboxing along with a quick overview of this device. So as always, packaging basically the same over the past couple of generations, nothing really changed here. Maybe apart from these little nice tabs that you can just pull off and easily open it up, which kind of appreciate this. It's kind of redundant, but it's still a nice little add-on as a ease of use. So anyway, from there, let's pop it open. Obviously some extra cardboard up here to protect the device, and nothing really here. Then we got this way more red color than it is on the box kind of color, as you can see. This is way darker red than it is shown on the photo here, which I do have to say it kind of looks nice. I prefer it this way. And from there we got obviously the typical accessories, so nothing, and just a cable, type C to type whatever the iPhones use, the lightning or whatever port it is. So nothing really special right here. So anyway, I just toss that to the side, and let's pop off this little foil. There we go. Always nice to rip something off like that. Okay, so let's hold the power key and turn it on, and while it's turning on I'm gonna start with the display. So this thing right here is a 6.1 inch display. It's a 1170 by 25 32 pixels. It's a Super Retina XDR OLED HDR 10, all that stuff. Basically just a lot of buzzwords to make it sound like it's freaking amazing, when in reality just a OLED display. Whoop-de-doo. Let's see. Let's change it to something, whatever. Actually, it doesn't really matter. So I'm gonna quickly go through the setup. I believe you need to connect to Wi-Fi, so I'm gonna do that right now. Okay, so continuing with this splendid display. It has a peak brightness of 1200 nits, and I believe the previous one is just like a average one at 800 nits. So I'm not sure what the problem here is. Come on. So the display is what I would call fairly typical. One thing that kind of bugs me here, the bezels right here are a bit bigger than they are on the 13 mini. So even though the device is bigger, it also has bigger bezels for some odd reason. So that's not the greatest thing. Now the notch, honestly, I kind of want to compare it to the actual mini. Gonna quickly set it up. Yeah, use anyway. Okay, let it load up. So set up later in settings, don't use. Okay, and there we go. Give me a sec. Okay, so moving on, we have, like I mentioned before, a fairly flimsy bezels right here. It's at 86% screen to body ratio, and pixel density is at 460 pixels per inch. So it's honestly downstep, I believe, from both of the in both categories, the screen to body ratio and pixel density from the 13 mini, though it is a smaller display with the same almost resolution, so that is to be expected to have a higher pixel density. What isn't expected is the screen to body ratio. Now anyway, moving on from this to the cameras, as you can see, it's basically the same setup as it is on the mini, which at this point starts to kind of, I'm starting to question why does this even exist if there is a mini. I guess for people that would rather have a bigger display, but that's the only reason why I can come up with. The devices are basically identical in specs. They have almost the same displays in terms of the quality, and the display size only differs. Cameras are the same, chipset the same, the storage options the same. The only difference in here is also the battery. It is a bigger device, so you can fit a bigger battery, but again, something that doesn't really make sense is the fact that this apparently charges as quick as the 13 mini, even though it has a bigger battery and the same kind of charging speeds, which either some idiot at Apple can't really figure out the numbers how a 1000 milliamp hour battery charges quicker, or not quicker, but the same rate as a smaller one with the same wattage. Is kind of beyond me. They virtually have the same exact chargings, so there is no reason for this to actually charge at the same rate as 13 mini. It should be charging longer if it has a bigger battery. At least that's what I'm assuming. It has a capacity of 30 to 40 milliamps, basically making it, I believe, like 1000 milliamps hour bigger, and that's a significant increase in the battery size here. And for some reason it also takes 30 minutes to charge it up to 50%. Questionable here. Probably that's what they're advertised, so I assume the numbers will say something else once people actually start charging and realize that it's probably different than what they advertised. So anyway, let's go back to what I was going about and not actual rant here. So cameras, at the back 12 megapixels, both of them, wide and ultra wide. At the front 12 megapixel wide, exactly the same as it is on the 13 mini. So with those cameras, at least at the back, you can record at 4K, 24, 30, 60, 1080p, 3060, 120, and 240, which I believe that is a slow-mo, but I could be wrong actually, haven't actually checked it out. And then at the front, we can record, again, almost the exact same thing, 4K, 24, 30, 60, 1080p, 3060, 120, minus the 240. So honestly, in terms of the selfie camera, this is really nice. The actual recording quality of the front one, and overall the camera that is here. And at the back, honestly, nothing outstanding. It's a 12 megapixel sensor, records at 4K 60. Whoop-de-doo. I've seen that on plenty of other devices at half the price, so can't really say there is any kind of groundbreaking going on here. So anyway, moving on, we have the specs of the device, and those again leave a little bit to be desired here, in my opinion. So we have the Apple A15 chipset. Now this is actually nothing that leaves to be desired. This is basically the best thing you can get, comparing, I think, to something like a Snapdragon 888. I think it's still better, although I haven't actually checked out the numbers. I do kind of try to remember this, so from what I remember, I'm pretty sure in terms of performance-wise, the A15 was always better, or the A series, compared to Snapdragons. I mean, they're using their own platform, so you'd kind of expect them to tweak their own processor to work the best with their devices, unlike Snapdragon, which needs to basically fit to almost any kind of Android phone. So the chipset here is really good, but then we have the storages. We have 128, 256, we have 512, and all of them come with a 4GB of RAM variant. Okay, for $800. Great. And additional thing that you probably are used to when Apple is screwing you is the fact that you don't have expandable storage. So you cannot skimp out and get a 128GB with 4GB of RAM and slap a SD card, because no, that would be too convenient. That would be an actual good thing for a user, and Apple does not do that. They do everything to make your life miserable and hard. So you basically have to fork out extra money for the 256 or 512, and if you don't, well, you're screwed. And the prices that they want usually are a little bit inflated for their storages for some odd reason. Now, to be fair, the storages that they have right here, not really depending on which one you get, just all of them that ranging from the 128 gigs to 512, all of those get the treatment of NVMe storage, which is basically the fastest storage type you can get. Now that is good right here for sole purpose. As an example, the 4K cameras. When you're recording at 4K 30, this will improve the speed at which the phone reads and writes this kind of footage. So you will spend less time processing it. So that's a good thing here. And moving on to the battery, we have a 3240 mAh battery with a 20 watt charger. Obviously, as you've seen, 20 watt charging without the charger in the box. So you get to have one of your own. Additionally, the cable that they provide also forces you to have a USB type C charger, assuming you already have one that actually came with the older one. So like the type A, not type C USB. If not, you basically have a useless cable in this case. Because I'm pretty sure majority of us have a normal wall charger that has the type A plug, but not everybody has a type C charger. To be honest, I don't think Apple ever included, although they could have, maybe in like the 11 series, a type C charger. I know Samsung did include in a couple of their phones a type C charger, so that if you had one of those you probably should be set, but everyone else, as for instance me, I don't have any Type-C charger, so this cable will be kind of useless to me. And I would only have to rely on wireless charging, assuming it actually charges wirelessly. It's technically supposed to have some Qi magnetic fast charging, but let's see if that actually functions here. And it does. So you don't need to have any magnetic charging, it's just a Qi charger compatible, so at least that's nice. If you have that, you kind of set at a fairly slow speed at 7.5 watts at Qi charging, but it's still better than not being able to charge your phone at all. And we also can say charge it with MagSafe wireless charging at 15 watts. Now that is a little bit better than the Qi charging, though you need the MagSafe charger from Apple, which again, they are probably not the cheapest thing. And lastly, like I mentioned, the price is at $799, and you basically right here paying $100 more for just a bigger screen, and that's about it when you compare it to the 13 mini iPhone. The only difference there is just the size and of the screen, and you pay $100 more. I don't know if that's worth it or not. Some people it might be. Some people would prefer to have a bigger device. I am on the other spectrum. I prefer to have my device super small, so I would much rather go for the mini, but in all honesty, I probably wouldn't go for iPhone at all. I'm not necessarily too keen on their closed ecosystem where basically kind of get stuck in it. And additionally, this device is just overpriced, flat out. Nowadays there's so many other picks to choose from that try to do something fresh and new that iPhone just makes no sense to me anymore. Now, to be fair, look at this. The design is exactly the same as the previous year. Nothing changed. Okay, no, wait. One thing changed. The notch is smaller. Whoop-de-doo. We have now under display cameras. I don't care about the notch one effing bit. Remove it altogether. Where's the fingerprint? It's my question as well. You're paying $800 for a device that really just... The only good thing is the display and the processor here, to be honest. I am not a fan of the actual iOS system on the device. It is way too strict, and I just don't like it. So I would be basically paying for something that closes me into a strict environment that is basically determined by Apple, what I can do on it. I don't like that one bit. And I get this nice Face ID, which nowadays, by the way, I don't know if you realize, but people are wearing masks all the time. What good is a Face ID if you can't ID your face because mask is covering it? Where's the fingerprint? You have a huge button on here, right? And that button could have been made into a fingerprint sensor, like other devices do. It's a super reliable fingerprint placement. They work outstanding. You always have to basically press this button anyway. So that's one way. The other way would be to jam it under display, but nah, Apple needs to be different. They need to not include things that are expected of a phone. So yeah, that's kind of my problems with this device right here. You overpay for things that you don't get even. Like, you get Face ID, which you can't use. You get bigger display with the same everything as the smaller version of it, and it lacks in features. It's just that simple. The device, in my opinion, overly however good it might be, it's still not worth the money, just because there's nothing fresh happening with it. If you have the previous version, gee, there is literally no way for you to upgrade. There is like nothing you get, in my opinion. I mean, obviously you get a better chipset, but the better chipset is nothing that's substantial for you to upgrade. If you have the previous one, I'm pretty sure it's working just flawlessly right now after 1 year. So upgrading it just because a new iPhone came out is redundant. And that's primarily one of the reasons why I can't recommend this device, just as the 13. If you had the previous one, the design is exactly the same, and the performance will be tiny bit better, but honestly it doesn't justify upgrading to a new one. And like I mentioned, it's still lacking in features. It still has this kind of mentality of we don't innovate till something, till basically industry forces us to, because that's basically what Apple came down to. With the notch, I mean, what is it even doing here? It's been for like, what, 5 generations, 4 of iPhones, and it's still here? Wow. They're advertising like we make it smaller, like it's such a big thing. It's basically as big as my, okay, maybe a little bit smaller, like my Huawei, which had a fairly hefty notch. It still does, but this device is about 5 years old now, or 4. Okay, my bad, maybe like 3, to be honest. But yeah, honestly, if, as an example, just to finish this off, this rant, if Apple would remove the notch altogether and make the entire bezels even, honestly, that would be enough for me to recommend this device. Make a hole punched camera, for God's sake, if that's all it would take. Add a fingerprint sensor to remove that notch. There is a couple ways to fix it, but the notch has no place in 2021, in my opinion, especially when there are way better alternatives nowadays. So yeah, that's kind of the end of it. I wouldn't recommend it just because there's nothing special happening here. The device isn't worth the money. That's as complex as it gets. It's not worth the money you pay for it. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and well, thanks for watching.